Welcome to the SWISH Show. My name is Ryan Tuckwood and I'm your host, and today I'm super excited to continue the series of sitting down and finding out a little bit more about our team here at ISR Training. Today I'm joined by our Head of Marketing, Miss Lauren Thompson, who has, for the first time ever, bought me a gift, which I've never had before, which is nice, which is, I don't know what it is, but we'll soon find out. It's probably water, is it? This is really good to have a drink. Oh, that's actually quite nice with the lemon in it. It's really nice. Just for people that are listening to this on the podcast, because that's a terrible intro, we've got some martini glasses with, I think, what's lemon water in it. Lauren, if you have not met or heard of her before, is a university graduate with a double degree in marketing and public relations / communications. She is a publicist. She was a publicist at Ruby Communications, working with a range of Australia's largest companies, activating their public relation campaigns. She's a committee member at YP Gold Coast, and she grew up in the hospitality sector with her father running multiple bars and clubs, I do believe, which we're going to delve into. Big Tomo, and has a passion for female opportunity to educate, for education at mass. And boxing, which we're going to dive into as well and talk about. I'm strangely nervous about this one. I'm going to put my clipboard down. I've got the bio out of the way and just see where the hell this goes. Loz, how are you feeling?
Feeling good.
Are you excited?
Hello, everyone. How are we going?
They can't answer you back.
I'm so used to on there.
It's not an interactive one. You ain't nervous?
No, I had my margarita before
you had a real margarita. Oh, have you got a real one and I've got a water?
Yeah, I stitched you up. I knew you couldn't handle it.
All right, okay. That might set the tone for where this is going to go for the next half an hour or so. Loza, for people that haven't had the fortune of meeting you either at a previous employment or coming into an interaction with ISR, who's Lauren Thompson? Talk to us about your background.
I mean, I think it very much depends on what time of the day this goes, but
we should do two versions.
We'll do two. We'll do the after 7 p.m. and the day version. Currently I'm the head of marketing at ISR Training, which I'm sure if you follow our socials you would see that, which you should, ISR Training. And then, I just have a massive passion for business, so working in marketing and public relations just kind of across the board, getting everything I do as far and wide as possible, and then just a big lover of life, really. Just giving
pretty
everything
happy
a crack.
in general, right? and you definitely do have that mentality, right? We can throw any task at you, and you just get it done. Before we come up to where we are right now, I want to understand about young baby child Lauren, what happened growing up in and around hospitality sector. Yeah, what happened? When did you fall on your head? No. What was that life like growing up? Because I had a good friend of mine, unfortunately Darren, he passed away at 21, and his dad, Croatian family, he ran a bar called the Fox and Hounds in Leicester, which was just a typical British pub. And I thought it was the best life. I used to love going around Daz's house, and they would have a chef in the kitchen, and he would make sausage, chips, and beans whenever we went round. Is it that good? Was it good living in bars or amongst all of that? I was born in Tamworth, New South Wales, and then I feel super lucky to have moved up to the Gold Coast when I was like 3 or 4. Don't really remember it. And then straight away, if you know the Gold Coast, we lived at the Hinterland Tavern in Nerang. That was his first pub, my dad's first pub that we moved to. So like at that stage, you're running around as a kid in a pub, not wearing shoes. Yeah. I have so many like little scars on my feet from the amount of times you just step on glass, but it was so fun. From what you remember, just honestly like being one of the locals, growing up. I remember, I was obviously told, I don't really remember, but just being in one of those, like, you would know the name, you've got kids, but those little bouncy things where you like hit Jolly Jumper.
A Jolly Jumper behind the bar, because mum and dad would both work behind the bar. Just being in a Jolly Jumper, if the babysitter cancelled, you behind the bar all night. So, and then you just kind of scaled it from there. And then as I got older, I kind of started thinking how cool it was. I realised that bars are much funner than being behind the bar. It's funner on the other side. But do you think your friends at school thought you were the cool one? I think as we got older, and then they started reaping the rewards of it, absolutely. But my first job, I always wanted to work in the pubs, and I think it was more so my mum was like, oh my God, no, not having a daughter work in a nightclub in Queensland, you can work there at 16. So I had to get another job. So did my brother and my sister. They weren't allowed to work for my dad direct. He wanted us to work for other people just to see what it's like. Obviously, it's super different. So I just worked in a little chicken carvery, I was going to say in sales, absolutely not in sales, just making food and hospo. And then when I was 16, I worked at the Mermaid Tavern, which was like a pub, and it was...
Another Mermaid Tavern.
Yeah, everything that goes wrong would probably happen there, all the nightmares you see. The news would come all the time, which I think is where I got my first spin of media, which is why I love it. Okay. Just seeing the back end of...
So working in and around that fast-paced environment with drinks flowing and people doing probably what they shouldn't be at certain times, but then seeing how the media actually spins that story, that was your first foray into... Wow, that's interesting how they turned that story into something that maybe wasn't anything.
I think it was, and then realising that, I guess, when you watch the media, and we've had conversations like this, because once you work in PR and media, you see not how easy it is, but how easy it is to get a story.
Yeah.
And then the perception of the public is like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But really it was 20 minutes of writing an email, giving a journalist a call and getting them to come out, which can advance your business so far and you don't even realise it. But yeah, I guess that would have been my first touch of media, just working in the bars. I remember one night a guy fell 8 meters and the media were there, and I'm so what do you want to hear? I want to, the media were there and the manager, the GM's going, we're not saying anything, we're not doing anything. And I was
out the front,
grabbing the microphone, hello, this is what happened, this is what I saw. I didn't see anything, I was just going for it. And then, and then seeing how that was spun into such a negative story was just super crazy. And then, a few things when I was quite younger, a few things that went wrong with my parents' business and how the media how a negative story can portray so much in a business and how it can pretty much derail a business. So 2 or 3 media releases or 2 or 3 bad news articles can literally send a business broke. So I think that's when I realised how important it was to be in control of your public perception and your messaging, and how even just we're super on message at ISR, even across our socials, being such an ethical brand, we are super specific with who we align with, because we don't want to align with someone unless it's a mutually beneficial or we're able to control that audience and how we portray our message. But you just have to be super specific. So I guess I always knew that I was very passionate about business, but understanding the different angles, how to market is a key. The public perception or your PR is another big key, which is kind of where I first went with to get that creative brain going. And then now sales is another thing, which I'm super fortunate to have fallen into a job in sales. Not fallen, pushed very hard for my job at ISR, but it's just another big piece of the pie of a successful business. So understanding all the angles. So
So you're around your dad, who's obviously very, very driven and very motivated, very business minded. I think it was a very astute move by him to get you to go and work in other companies as well, rather than just be wrapped up in cotton wool by dad, so to speak, because regardless, I think we'd always look after our own. How has that affected you from a business perspective, work ethic wise, conscientiousness, and understanding, I guess, working within a business, but also understanding that, hey, I'm an integral part in this and I want to go above and beyond because I know how hard it is for a business owner. Has that impacted you?
100%. I remember I think 14 and 6 months when you get your first job, and I would have to catch the bus, and if the bus was running late, honestly, I'm not an anxious person, but I hate running late. And I just know that only because once I ran 20 minutes late for a shift, and it was a 4-hour shift on a Tuesday night, but I remember they were like, no, you can go home. And I think if that happened with my dad, he would have known that I missed the bus because my mum didn't iron my uniform that night. Or you get those little things, but I remember they sent me home, and honestly, that feeling of just letting a team down instead of someone else making excuses for you is super important. So from that perspective. And then I think also knowing that you can move up ranks, or ranks, I'm talking, I was 14 in a little
chicken to beef.
Exactly. But those responsibilities, you can move up tiers without it being oh, you got it because of this, or exactly. So I feel that and then you flip it the other way. I think I was put in management positions at 17, 18, running bars with 800 capacity, which that wouldn't have happened, and I wouldn't have got that experience, that management experience, if I wasn't working for my dad, which it throws you in the deep end, but it also, you have to pull the right strings. It benefits you in some ways, then sometimes it's you have to run with the it wouldn't have happened without that.
So you got the work ethic instilled into you. You got the accountability of not wanting to let people down, but then you would have seen the family life of a business owner as well once you got home. So what was it like? Were your parents, or are your parents, able to switch off?
No. Well, they're very different. My mum's a nurse, so I would get a scratch and I would ask her and she wouldn't even want to hear about it. Do you know what I mean? Because she's like, nope, I'm off the clock. Yeah, 100%. But then my dad is very open and always kind of on the clock. And I don't know whether it's because like owning pubs and that, it's not 9 to 5.
Sure.
You're like Thursday to Sunday is your peak time. But I think they're very different in the fact that, or growing up, you want to know so much about business, but my mum wouldn't ever want to talk about like finances or success. And I think as I've gotten older, and a lot of people I think will resonate with that, you want to know, not to tell your friends or to do anything, you want to know because you want to learn from their mistakes. And that's why sometimes like we talk about how much do we delve into like all of our sales team and all of our external staff about our finances, because it's like you want them to, because if you don't tell them, they're not going to learn.
Sure.
But you don't want to give everything away, that it's just like your business is open.
Yeah.
So I think they're very different in those ways. And if that went off on a bit of a tangent, but I think it's just, trying to find that balance. I always say between my mum and my dad, because dad's very open. He'll be like, nah, we lost this amount, we did this.
Yeah, okay,
like,
he just tell you.
Direct, yeah.
Did that as a kid, because I don't come from that background, right? So, and you say that you wanted to find out about business and finance. I never did. I got all the way through to 27, 28 years old, and I'd never been around that. Like, if you spoke about finance, you spoke about being overly ambitious, you were a money-orientated individual, and you should be grateful for what you've got. We've got a roof over our heads, sort of thing. So it was never in my remit I was never around
that
business owners. Yes. So he was very honest with you, and I'm sure there were times where businesses might have struggled as well.
100%.
Did that affect you then? Did it make you go, I don't want to be a business owner, or what's the point?
I think, you definitely, what do we say, the change curve, where it's like you have that burst, like, oh my God, like, how do we do this? But then when you're young and it's not your responsibility to pull the business out, you kind of get to see that that's just the normality. And I think that for me is really great. Like you always say, I don't fear bankruptcy. Things like that don't scare me, only because I've seen them ride that wave. And like at the moment we're riding that wave. Like we don't know, their business was shut for months. But just seeing that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, but then again, that could have gone opposite. And I could have been like 12, 13, super interested in business, watched them fail, and then never want to do that myself. So I think I'm in a pretty lucky position where they were able to pull themselves out. But then again, my brother and sister are not business minded at all.
Yeah, it's interesting.
They wouldn't even want to know. They get annoyed. I don't live with them anymore, but if I go over for dinner, and because I don't see my parents all that often, I'll want to know what's happening, and they're like, oh, like I'll want to like dive straight into it, and they just want to have like dinner conversation. They're like, how's your day? What's on this weekend? I'm like, so like how's it all going? And they get so frustrated with me. But
it's strange because we can all be brought up in the same environment, but then we can go on very different journeys as well. Does that lead you then towards, from a business perspective, running your own business? Do you see yourself running your own company one day in any sort of fashion?
Yeah, I think all the time. I always think, we were literally talking about, the girls and I the other night were talking about retiring, and they're like, oh, I want to retire at this age. And I was always like, I could just see myself being on like 7 different boards, committees, like literally until the day I die.
Just turning up, having margaritas.
Sunday brunch is just margaritas.
I can picture your life very clearly.
At the golf club.
Carrying a chihuahua.
I do. I think it's so hard when people are like, oh, what business do you want to run? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I hate that question.
It's a tough question.
Because it's like, it happens to some people, but I don't see, like, I don't have that passion or drive where it's like, I want to own a vet or I want to do that. I kind of just see myself like having a diversified portfolio of just a couple, like numerous things. And like, I think everything sort of interests me, like, which has really opened my mind to different businesses. Because I know you're meant to, the Sharks always say like it's super important to specialize in one field and really like hammer that home. But I also think if you've got a generalized approach to running a successful business from the back end and not those finer details of like the day-to-day operations, because you can employ that. I think I shouldn't have to be a specialty in that.
It's your job to create that North Star, right? The vision. Like for me, it's taken me a few years to really kind of get to that and get out of the nitty gritty and
also
stop
let it go.
And let it go and go. I employed you guys for a reason. From a sales perspective, I don't believe we've got a better salesperson in the company than me.
Yes.
If I'm being honest. But if it was still just me, then we'd be a very small localized business. And I need to get out my own way to do that as well. So it's up to you to create that vision and then pull the right team around you and then empower them. So you learn more leadership skills than you do what is the product. And me and Ariana spoke about this as well. She spoke a lot about her faith and her church being the foundation for her to have stability in life, and it kind of saved her in a way. And I said, for me, I think the business has done that for me. Like, I'm not religious, I'm not faith-led, I'm not spiritual, but I've got a true purpose, and I feel like I've found that purpose, which is, I think that's a gift in itself. So have you found what your purpose is just yet, or is it something that you consciously think about or look for?
I think that's probably one of the issues. I'm not consciously thinking about a passion. Do you know what I mean? Things just drive me, but I'm like... What
drives you? When you do something...
Deadlines
that's true.
Drive me.
Okay, so if you dig deeper into deadlines, why does ticking a goal off at the end of the day give you a level of internal fulfillment, highlighting it,
emailing it over to you? I hate not having things going all the time. So I guess because, when you're at uni or like when you're in high school, no matter what you do in your day-to-day, at this date you are graduating. So there's like a tick, ticking that box. And I feel like for me it's always like ticking the box of like the next thing to do. So even at the moment, so say what I've just had my 1 year at ISR, it's like, right, what's the next box I'm ticking, and like how can I do this? And I know that even Kim Barrett's marketing mogul course that you got me into, just doing something or like looking more into automation or always learning a new skill, because I think people when you get comfortable you're just not learning. So actively learning and just putting myself in it. I'm still I'm 23 years old. At the moment I'm very much about learning more, not because I've got a degree, but I think my degree, someone like Jackson, our videographer, would be able to learn it all in 3 months if you sat down. A 4-year degree, you're not going to implement everything you learn. So I think at the moment just really knuckling down a few things that I want to learn, such as like automation, just like really getting that going, and then all of our Facebook ads and social ads, etc. I'm really specializing numerous skills. And then I know you're never ticking a box because there's always more to learn, but getting to a start and an end for me is super important, to be like, okay, I feel like I've adhered that skill. Because you see it all the time, people, when we see it all the time, when they run a business, they're super scared to start, and they spend 6 weeks working their logo and their brand set. And I'm like, we always say, just get on the phones, see if people want it.
It doesn't have to be perfect, you just got to get started.
And we find, because we sometimes like, I think previously we're very good at the moment at being like, right, we're launching a podcast next week, go. So instead of just dwelling on all the little things, I find that just really just grabbing things and going with it and ticking that box for me is super important.
But you're great at that, right? And I'm historically not. I've got, and you just alluded to it then. I've got way better at it in recent years, in the fact that I've become a better decision maker, and it was a conscious decision I had to make to become a better decision maker. It took me ages to become. But previously, I would sit on the fence. I didn't want to ruffle feathers. If I didn't agree with somebody, I wouldn't say anything. I would just wait for that scenario to play out and go wrong, even though I knew it was going to go wrong, which is a really poor thing to do in life in general. Whereas now, I think you're right. We make quick decisions. So what's your process, right? If there is a process, you got other people out there that might be like me, and I come up to them and I'm like, hey guys, I've decided we're going to launch a podcast and I want to get it done in the next 12 days, right? Yeah. Do you have a mental process for it to become a logical decision that it just makes sense, where before you come back to me and go, okay, Ryan, that's a great idea, but just so you know, it's going to take us roughly 30? Or do you just go, yes, and figure it out? And if you do the second one, how can more people take on that sort of mindset?
I think it's such a valuable mindset to have, but say yes like every time. I know, but then there's a flip side to that. You don't want to say yes on something that's completely unrealistic, because then you're only going to let everyone down. I think it comes trial and error. You're going to mess it up sometimes, but just by, even when you come to me with ideas, I'll look online, we have everything at our fingertips at the moment.
Yeah.
I could Google how long does it take to launch a podcast. There'll be articles there that say 6 months of prep, and there'll be people there on a random blog that said they did it in 3 days. So I'll look at that and be like, well, if they can do that.
Yeah, if it's been done once before,
if it's been done before,
I
know that I can do it again. And that's not even a question to me. I'm just like, it's just going to happen. And then I think what I do is I'm pretty bad for, if I can't tangibly see the end product, it's like creating a design. If I don't have an idea of what I want it to look like, I really struggle because I like to see the end goal.
Yeah.
But so for the podcast example, writing out a list of things that I need and literally just having it on my desk and then ticking those boxes.
So having a deadline.
Having a deadline and then also breaking it down to a minuscule level and just having, because everyone says like, oh, there's an end goal or I really want to get to here. You have to break that down into little goals and achievements to get that, because you're never going to get there otherwise.
Yeah.
So it's all just like little wins between now and then. So I guess if someone ever gives you a big task, just break it down. What is the first step? Because every task is overwhelming until you think, okay, well, the first thing I can do is research. The first thing I can do is tick this box. So I think for me, just breaking it down to a minuscule level. Yeah,
nice. I guess with any task, like you could have also gone onto Google and said, checklist for starting a podcast. Right, and it might have come up.
Done that.
It could. Well, I just think back to our wedding. Not our wedding, mine and Alicia's wedding.
Our wedding.
Yeah, you weren't there. And me and Alicia sat there and we were like, well, what do we do? I was like, well, there must be a checklist. People have been married before. And we Googled it and it was a 180-point checklist.
Done.
And we both went, shit. Okay, that's a lot.
We're not getting married.
So I went, well, yeah. Well, that's 90 each. So, and then we got 18 months till the wedding. So we did 18 months divided by 90 tasks.
Yes.
What are the priority? And we just broke it down and we said, okay, so you're doing 2 tasks this week, I'm doing 2 tasks that week, blah, blah, blah. And we just started, and we just made it logical as opposed to overwhelming.
Absolutely.
With your mind is an interesting one, right? And I'm going to try and terminize this correctly if I can, because we've been on the business conversation for a second. You've got a very corporate feel to you. You're very professional. You present very well. You can adapt to all different environments. But then there's a weekend, Lauren. Then I say weekend. There's a 5:30 p.m. Friday, and you, I would say truly. I'd say you truly switch off, but if I message you on a Saturday night at 1 a.m. because I've had a random idea as I'm up,
I love that.
I'm changing my baby's nappy and you're on a dance floor somewhere, right?
I like this.
You also respond. How do you switch off but stay switched on?
I don't like the idea of switching off. I think if you're passionate and you love what you do, you never switch off. Because even you, well, I was down in Byron a few weeks ago. And I think you were like, how was Byron? And I was at the beach hotel and I sent a photo of my cocktail and you were like, oh, well, this is what I'm doing. And instantly I thought, oh, he's changing Mav's nappy or something like that. And then you were in a float. You were in the spa float. And you're sending me creative ideas. And I was like, aren't you meant to be in here to be relaxing? And you're the same as me.
Yeah,
I think
can't,
you can't, because everywhere you go, especially everywhere is such a business opportunity. I think half the connections that I make are like on a Justin Lane on a Friday night, or because that's just how I should. Not everything has to be so corporate where it's you have to go. And I always say this to sales, where I'm like, you don't have to intentionally be networking.
Yeah,
you don't have to walk to an event with 10 business cards being like, I'm going to give 10 away. Do you know what I mean? Like, talk to people, find out more about them. And if you genuinely believe that you can help them or they can help you, then have that conversation.
Yeah,
but don't go into this being like, it's like going into a bar and finding your husband.
Right,
you know,
I'm looking for my partner.
Like you can't do that. I mean, I'm sure it's worked for someone. But I just think you don't have to switch off or switch on.
That's a really important message, right? Because I get told this a lot, right? Switch off. Just relax. You'll kill yourself.
My friend Alicia, Lauren, do not have plans on Sunday. This is literally last Sunday. My calendar is
I hope
like.
she listens to this.
I'll send this to her. She'll love this. Even on weekends, I've got calendar, and if I know I've got a 45-minute podcast, I'll say, can we meet at coffee at 9:10? And my friend's like, oh my God, typical Lauren.
Yeah.
But And so on Sunday I woke up and I watched the boxing, and then that was over at 6:30, and I was 6:30 a.m. on a Sunday. I had no plans for the day, and it was the worst ever. I text like 30 people. I was, what are you doing today? Hello, I'm stuck.
Just sitting there with itchy
because
feet.
I literally was like, oh my gosh, I like having plans, and I like being super busy, and if that means that I don't unwind, then maybe I'm not wound up.
But that's exactly right? And the unwind, well, no, that means I have to be wound up to unwind. I'm permanently unwound.
Yes.
Right. I'm as unwound as it comes. I'm a straight piece of string. Yes. And I genuinely love what I do for a living. But I think the challenge that I've seen amongst other business owners, staffing, friends, family members, is that most people don't enjoy what they do. So they find it really hard to comprehend that somebody would want to be involved in their work on a weekend, in evenings, and so on and so forth, which is pretty sad as well. But there is something that you seem to do to unwind if you do get wound up, and you just touched on it then. You box, or you boxed. Where did that come from?
Where did that come from?
How good was that segue, by the way?
Thank you so much for that. I knew that was coming in. Boxing, I literally love it. It's so fun. I never thought that I would actually have a fight, only because...
So how long have you been boxing for?
Well, technically, for fitness, probably 6 years.
Wow.
Yes. My dad, it was like a publican versus publican, very much like a promotional fight.
I reckon if you own bars and clubs, you probably should learn how to box anyway.
So I first started boxing my first day at working at a bar.
Wow. By accident.
By accident. I was actually security.
Yeah.
And then, I moved to Gold Coast PCYC Boxing. You can join. And my trainer there, Jay, he just has an awesome, it's very community, like every time you go there, they just love it. And if you don't go, you get the message or the Instagram story of where are you. And then a few of the boys there, a lot of them are pro fighters or they're amateur, and they're just really moving up the ranks. And every time a boxing comp comes around, they're like, Lauren, are you going to sign up? And I'd be like, no. And then one day Jay's like, you'll never do it. And instantly, people that say I'm not going to do something,
that's it,
I was so triggered. I was like, sign me up, put me on. And it was 10 weeks. And the first day of my 10-week fight camp was the first day I started ISR.
Yeah, I remember,
Yeah, because I was...
And I was like, this girl doesn't drink. This is amazing. What an employee.
The first 10 weeks I was, every Monday I was on the mark. But and then I just did a 10-week and then had my fight last September 27th, which was so much fun. I loved it. Won.
How did you feel going into that? How does that compare to business life, day-to-day pressures of working and deadlines and all of that?
Exact same as what we just said. Like, you break it down. I remember thinking, how am I going? Because I'd never really sparred before. Mine was all very fitness. Exactly the same as breaking down any big goal. You start with your first sparring session and then your first sprint session. And then for me, I had a lot of weight to lose. He's like, you can either sit in the weight you're at and fight a girl who's probably going to be like 6'5", or you can like get on the shred. And I was like, yes, it's almost summertime. This is like the perfect opportunity for me to get on the shred for summer. And then, just breaking it down first spar, and like you would lose back-to-back sparring, because I'd be sparring girls who were like Queensland title or up there with that, and you get pumped, but I love that. And I think if I went in there and won, which probably wasn't going to happen anyway, but felt really good after it, you don't train as hard, but when you lose you get knocked down a little bit, and it's like I was only getting knocked down, I wasn't getting knocked out. So it's like I left on a Saturday afternoon.
Look at that. We only had a bad week, we didn't have a really bad month.
And that's exactly right. We have a bad day, but it happens with the sales boys. It's notorious when we've got a 4-day week, we make more sales than we do on a 5-day week, or just because you've got that drive in your belly.
You've got to go harder.
You've got to go harder. So that's what happens. Then you train harder for the next week, and then you get to the final day and kind of all goes to plan.
So flip on its head then. Let's say you didn't get knocked down in sparring. You were cruising all the way along. Is your mindset different then? Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't even know why. I think knowing that there's always better motivates me. Like, I think if you've got a goal, or you see someone like you would see speakers, and you sit there and you go, I want to be on that stage. You get on that stage, you're looking to the next stage, because there's always that one.
I'm not looking back.
No. And that's exactly right. Same as boxing, same as anything really. you drive yourself from, you really like want to propel yourself to that next step. So it's always just moving up a step. And if you're happy sitting at your step, and some people are, they're super happy just being at the level they're at. They feel comfortable, they're making enough money, or they're making enough fitness for them, that's it. But I think for me, you're the same. We're very like, what's that, the way you like can't sit still, you just
itchy feet.
Itchy feet. Itchy feet syndrome, where you just cannot stop. There's always that one more, you just want to go that 10% more. And I think that's what drives me.
I think it's a beautiful analogy for business, right? Because you can keep sparring with people that you feel really comfortable with, but until you step in the ring with somebody that is way more advanced than you, and we start playing on a bigger field with people that have already been on that journey before and made it, then we don't grow. But you also said quite rightly that if you don't want to, that's also okay. So we're not sitting here today going, every single one of you needs to push your business tenfold. If you're comfortable at the level you're at and you enjoy it and you've got fulfillment, that's also okay.
That's all you need.
As well. Last couple of questions.
Okay.
How, this is probably more of a selfish question, how do we get the best out of Lauren? I'm under no illusion that you're going to be marketing manager here at ISR forever. I've got other visions of where you're going to go, but how do we get the best out of you, and where do you see yourself in a few years' time?
I think for me, within ISR, just upskilling, we want to bring a lot of what we outsource at the moment internally. So really just upskilling myself to be able to either do it or oversee that and have full control, because we could bring someone in right now who does Facebook ads and they would work not below me, within my team, but I would want to understand exactly what they're doing. And that's why sometimes I find with Jackson, our videographer, he'll make something new and I'll be like, can you show me how to do it? And he's so busy, he's like, can I just, and I'm like, no, like show me, because I it's not because I'm like,
it's not micromanaging, it's just a genuine desire to learn.
It's a genuine desire to be like, okay, so then next time when we've got an intern or another videographer, I'd be like, no, I feel like there was that thing that you could do, and just having a full kind of overlay of that. And then I think externally from ISR, just really immersing myself in things like YP Gold Coast, like committee, and just having a full understanding of there's more than ISR, but there's also like everything's just super connected, especially on the Gold Coast. Like I never want to have to leave here. I want the Gold Coast to be booming.
It's a pretty good place.
Why would I want to leave ever?
Well, that was the last thing I wanted to touch on was YP, because you recently joined the committee there, literally a month or so ago?
A month, 6 weeks ago.
How did that come about? What is YP Gold Coast for people that have never heard of it as well?
So I'll start with what is YP, so it makes a little bit more sense. So YP Gold Coast it's a leading advocacy group. So what they do is they advocate for a lot of Gold Coast businesses, or not political views, but kind of what's happening. So say like the yachts or the cruise ship terminals or the airports and tourism, etc. So the
trams.
The trams, that's a big topic of conversation.
What does YP stand for?
Young professionals. Okay. Oh yeah, that makes sense. So what it is a young professional group on the Gold Coast, and we there's a small group of us, and they range from, so myself and Jack Bodjanowski, so she's from Ruby Communications, which is how I first got into YP. We head the marketing communications team, and then we've got others, so law, tourism, accounting. So there's kind of one from every sort of aspect of the Gold Coast. We all come together every 3 weeks, have a meeting, talk about what's happening, and then it's also a great networking opportunity. So we typically host 5 events a year. One of them is the City Leaders Forum, which hopefully we'll be able to do this year. And that has the mayor and the CEO of the Suns and Sunland Group, so very Gold Coast. Some massive players. And what we do is we get them all in the one room and they just discuss topics and how we can really optimise in the Gold Coast economy and how we can boost it up to an international level whilst staying. We love that community, that Gold Coast, walking down to your local cafe, knowing everyone knows everyone. So, I joined them, 6 weeks ago, and just loving it.
And we can go to those events. Anybody can go to those events.
Absolutely, So it's tailored for young professionals. So if you have any interest,
class young. I've not been invited recently.
Well, you hit the benchmark.
I'm right on the threshold.
You're right on the threshold. No, you can still be in the Young Entrepreneur of the Year awards. So we'll include it. No, but even then, it's young professionals who mobilise the ideas behind it. But it's engaging. There's also the mentors that we invite, and a lot of our sponsors' dinners. They're all 50, 60, 70 plus. And they're coming in because they've success leaves clues. So they're saying they've grown up on the Gold Coast and seen that whole transition from small coastal town to now like phenomenon of like central market business on the Gold Coast. So I think aligning every single mindset as well as having the young professionals who really drive that change is super important. That's where they want to go with it, which is where we want to go with it.
I love what you guys are doing over there. I know for you it's a voluntary role as well, so it's not just everyone knows, it's a true passion as well. And I class myself as a Gold Coaster after being here nearly 10 years now. So for anybody that's listening down in Sydney or Melbourne that's thinking about relocating their business up here, I didn't even finish my sentence. Why do it? What's going to happen? I know you've only been there a short amount of time, but from what you're hearing and seeing behind the scenes, I know we've got a lot of clients in Sydney and Melbourne that ask us all the time, what are you seeing and what's going to happen with this city over the next decade or so? Why should they move up here?
The growth, especially at the moment, I think with everything going on with the pandemic, we're realizing that everything is digital. Companies now employing people, and you can be based in America working for a London company, go on holiday in the Gold Coast. But I think knowing that you've got everything at your fingertips on the Gold Coast, so you've got all your big corps here, you can have all your head offices, you still got that corporate lifestyle, you've got that CBD approach, whilst also knowing you can walk and have your lunch on the beach. And especially with the trams and that happening at the moment on the Gold Coast, going from the airport
so connected,
all the way up to Helensvale, jumping on the train and going to Brisbane all within like an hour and a half is just so crazy. So I think we're extremely fortunate where we can look at what Sydney and Melbourne have done and what they've done wrong and know that we can, like the town planning, we can build the Gold Coast to be the most adaptable city to both culture and business.
Yeah, I agree.
Which, I mean, we're seeing more and more people moving here. It's crazy.
We're like the third child that's just watched whatever the other two have done wrong.
Exactly.
And we're like, that's what we shouldn't have done.
That's what we shouldn't have done.
And we've got the sun and the beach, and we've got the best day-to-day living in the world, in my opinion.
No, not even in your opinion. To me, I'm like, that is a fact. You're wearing a turtleneck today. It's like 22 degrees.
I know. We'll finish on that. Lauren, thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you
there was
for
lots of nuggets of gold in there as well. I think, not that I'm surprised. I knew there would be.
This was completely scripted.
I will be back on our next episode of The Swish Show with another one of our staff members very, very soon. I hope you enjoyed that. Have yourself a great day.
Thank you.